crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best?
Welcome to Discover Crypto. As we enter the great unknown, we have some nasty news breaking across the markets about Japan and a disgusting pattern recognition coming up on Bitcoin right now, maybe setting up for even more pain. It has been an absolute battle, and we have a lot of unfortunate news to cover. And really, I'm going to be taking a look at one of the main altcoins in the crypto ecosystem today, XRP, on the potential price action should things continue to unwind. We have an absolutely stacked panel today. But first of all, got to bring up Kelly Kellum. How the hell you doing, man?
You know what? I'm doing pretty darn good, and happy to see everybody here. We got a great panel. Everybody that's tuned in, hit that like button, show some love. We do have a prophecy here from a wise man on the back in the interwebs. It's wise man say, Bitcoin always looked dumpiest before pumpiest. But the question here is, how much lower can this damn market go? Because it keeps just breaking these things. Are we coming back to 82? Are we going to 69? We're going to be diving into that, and also some very troubling things about what's going on with XRP and levels you should be watching on many altcoins. But we got a great show packed today, so everybody stick around. Drop some questions and comments in the live chat because we are watching it, baby.
Absolutely. And I got to go around the horn and introduce everyone. William Watson, it's been a while since we hung out. Saw you back in Nashville, Bitcoin Nashville, time ago. And it's like almost like you're joining Piano Matty B as he's literally out of Kill Bill and you have samurai swords behind you. Okay. It's almost like we're recreating Kill Bill. William, give an introduction, though. I think this might be the first time we've had you on the show.
It might be, but nice to be chatting with everybody here and to be chatting with all the folks, well, in the chat. But yeah, so name's Will Watson. I've been an investor and trader in the space since 2017. I've been making content since 2020, but I was terrible at it until about like 2023 or so. And now I'm a co-owner and co-host of the Rise Up Morning Show and Rise Up Media Company, where we focus on like helpful crypto education for folks and helping people avoid scams and learning what to actually use in the space to actually help you. So,
bro, I gotta ask because channel partners of ours as well, Arculus. You got a pretty sick Arculus. Is that a shirt there?
Oh yeah, dude, they got us swagged out. Also, they know I drink espresso in the morning, so they sent me a custom-made Arculus espresso cup as well. It's the most personal swag I've ever seen. That dude gives free mustache rides.
I got the best
Beautiful.
chat. You know,
Perfect.
This is the most
fantastic
unhinged chat you're gonna find on DC.
I love it. I love it.
We got our man Piano Matty B. He's from Kanadistan. Oh God.
I must ask you a question, Watson. Your face.
Oh Lord. He's got a great haircut. That's what I remembered about you, Will. Incredible haircut. Right. That's what I remembered.
I appreciate it. This is actually me after having the barber just, you know, when you're sitting in the chair, they do something to, and you're like, oh no, but they've already made the first cut and you just gotta let them do it. That happened like 3 times my last haircut. So I appreciate it.
That's true. And I got my man Piano Matty B. Matty B, first off, where the hell did you find this outfit? I mean, you look absolutely incredible today.
This is a jacket I got thrifting with my niece a few years ago, and it turns out it's a weird little Adidas collector's thing. Not that I give a shit, but it was just super cheap. It was about $8 or $10, and I bought it, and I wear it every now and then. But let me say one thing that's more important, okay? When a guy like Willie has a mustache like that, he doesn't get a lot of compliments, because I've had a mustache like that before, and guess what? There's no girls coming up to me and saying, hey, Piano Matty B, that's a great mustache. But there are guys that come up and say, hey, like under the, hey, sweet mustache, right? So I just got to give props where props are. And hey, Willie, it's a sweet mustache. Don't let anyone tell you that.
Things have taken a very quick turn. And, you know, honestly, Bitcoin's kind of taking a turn to the downside here. Let's go check it out. Things are kind of looking a little grim, boys. We have not broken back up. In fact, this thing looks very sluggish. Benjamin Cowan was putting out some pretty base takes on Bitcoin revisiting these lows here in the $75,000, $80,000 region, unfortunately, and things are kind of angled that way. And what I saw in terms of patterns that look similar, kind of make me a little bit queasy, and I do want to cover them real quick before we got to cover Japan and the yen carry trade unwinding that it looks like was going to be coming about at the end of the week. But these two patterns of basically that sluggish attempt at resurgence and then a breakdown further do appear to be playing out right now. And, two of the guys on this show are awesome at charts, Kelly and Piano Matty B. I want to start with Piano Matty B's take and then Kelly's take on where the hell Bitcoin's going to go from right now. Because, we're at a point where if we aren't able to recapture some momentum, which feels like we're losing a lot of momentum, then we might have to be considering much lower levels on altcoins and Bitcoin. Piano Matty B, what are you seeing?
Well, if we, I mean, on the 4-hour chart, she's always a little so-and-so, so you can't really pay a lot of attention to it. We, I think last week on the show, I put in this, keep your eyes on 87.9, and look at this. Clicked right down to 87.9. Then we got this brutal, pathetic relief rally up to the 20 moving average and put it in Monday morning, 9 o'clock, bingo, bango, bongo, all the way down. And so far we've created this little bear flag. And, if you're into technical astrology like Kelly and I are, you take that pole, you slide it all to the breakout point, and meanwhile there's 84K-ish. Don't forget about that. There's a pit stop there that could be resistance, but if we break that, we're down to 81.5. And now I know I come on here with all these bearish numbers, but god damn it if they don't come to fruition. I don't want them to. I would rather follow this little doodle up to the 200 moving average and this channel of ascension, right, which we busted out of, which we do. We bust out a channel of ascensions, but that's at 91K-ish. And if we were to break into this channel of ascension, we would likely retest the channel's resistance up at 98. What's 98? You didn't ask. Well, 98.3 is my bull market rejection zone, which we've always rejected off. Now, if we don't come close to it, we will look back and say that this attempt at 96 was close enough, and we got rejected from the 38.2% fib. This is what we always do when we're coming out of a bull market, a bull market, right? If you really want to call it a bull market. But if you do the CAGR from 69 to 126, it's a 16% CAGR. So at 16%, guys, what are we doing? So 16% is arguably debasement and inflation. The people say, Bitcoin hurdle rate is, that's the hurdle rate. Well, if it's 16% CAGR, well, what are you doing? We're treading water. We're at zero. Now, here's where it gets a little dark. We've never recreated the past bull run CAGR, right? So for instance, 2017, 2021, I'm going to get answer some questions. 2017 to 2021, that was a 35% CAGR, right? 2021, 2025, if 126 is the top, which it looks like it's going to be the top. I mean, there's a week or two left in December, but that will be a 16% CAGR. So if we do what we've never done and reproduce the 16% CAGR, which we've never done, right? We would go 126 4 years out, and it comes to about, 200K, maybe we kind of blast through that. That's in 4 years. But if we follow the diminishing return on the CAGR, 35, 16, well, I mean, I'm no genius, but I am a pattern recognitionist and a probabilitarian. I would say that we might get a 50% haircut in the CAGR. And if we get 16% cut to 8%, guess where we kind of top out? Barely above 2026. Or 2025 high of 126. So imagine if we spend the next 4 years, and this is probably about the bearish thing anyone's ever heard in their whole life, but with a reduced CAGR of 8%, imagine getting to 2029 and not even getting above 126.
That's horrible. That's horrible. Jesus, Matty B.
These are just numbers, though, right?
That's true.
They're just numbers.
It's true.
At the same time, that's so much time to buy cheap Bitcoin, huh?
Oh my God! But imagine if inflation
change, right? The fixed total cap supply is going to stay the same. The amount of institutions coming in and buying is going to increase. Nation state adoption is going to also increase. So all of this, the most bearish case ultimately would be the most bullish case for people that are patient and prepared. But diving into the charts, I do want to highlight, we see this sort of meltdown, this sort of waterfall in the price action going coming down to a level, breaking it, coming down to a level, breaking it, coming down to a level here, breaking it. And I just want to highlight something. One is that 98.3, 98.5 sort of level that Piano Matty B was talking about is roughly, that would be the price action only getting up to this previous range high, which I agree. That would ultimately be fairly bearish if we reject here on any attempt. But I am still looking for I'm still bullish on 2026, but I'm still looking for this to potentially come back down and test and even be a little bit lower than this $80,500. Because if you come back to what we saw in this sell-off here, and I talked about this the other day, we haven't had any of the conditions like on the RSI and money flow, this bullish divergences that would suggest we're going to get any sort of big move. So if you look at this sort of measured out, I measured it out the other day. This was about, I have it right here, about about 70 days from this low to the next low. That would put the next low, roughly about right where this next mark is. Boom. We're kind of coming up on that somewhere in this zone. If we're looking at any sort of time similarities of this washing out into Christmas, where everybody's expecting some sort of Santa rally. But there are bullish things out there, guys. As much as we want to be a little bit contentious, it's very bearish. We need to protect ourselves. Yes, that is the case. But every bit of bearishness has this weird bit of bullishness that just the market's not realizing. Right here, we're seeing the volume on Coinbase for institutional buying has gone completely vertical, which is just super bizarre right now. It also kind of indicates the difference between longer term minded players versus retail, because the longer term minded institutions are stacking into this next year, into the next year, into years beyond that. Whereas right now, retail is super duper scared. And you can see that on this chart right here, long-term holders selling at a higher rate than they have been. I mean, this was a predecessor to a top. This was kind of at a regional kind of strong local top that took 7 months to build confidence to get back up to. This was going into that top right here, right before the inauguration. And here we are again, the highest level of long-term selling. So this is why everybody's so confused. Institutional players going exponential, long-term holders just generally in the market selling, and we're seeing open interest rising, meaning right now everybody's still going long. We may have a little bit more of a washout to kind of cleanse this market before we get that upward price action that we're looking at. And I've been saying this, as bullish as I am on 2026, it may be all the way in through the end of this year, all the way in through even January before we really start to see that next real bullish attempt come out.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I know this week I feel like there's a shit storm coming. I feel like the shit hogs are flying in low. And it's kind of particularly why I wanted to bring William on the show. He's been covering the subject matter very concisely for some time. And it is the Bank of Japan. And there's reports that the Bank of Japan have confirmed it's going to interest rate hike up to 75 base points in the coming days. The first thing I wanted to ask is, William, is it 100% confirmed that we're looking at a interest rate hike of around 25 base points for the Bank of Japan to move up to 75 bips total? Is that confirmed on your end?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a phone number to the Bank of Japan, but however, analysts are saying a 25 basis points, so a 0.25% increase to the Bank of Japan, which normally would be considered very small according to the Fed. However, if you haven't been paying attention to the Bank of Japan, they've done 2 rate hikes in the past like 15, 20 years or so. And they have been 0.1%, so just 10 basis points. So going up to 25 bips, just another term for it, is a large increase for them, even though in the US it would be considered a normal, small, moderate kind of a hike. But for those of you who are unaware as to why this is a problem, it's, to put it simply, Japan has been a place for the world to borrow money really, really, really cheaply for about 15, 20 years, to the tunes of multiple trillions of dollars. And now Japan is in the problem of like, okay, cool. We either inflate our currency to the point where our economy fails, or we, protect ourselves and still hurt the market by doing so. And so they've chosen to do that as a lesser evil for their economy. It's the right choice. But this is going to cause a lot of liquidations across global markets, which is why us in the crypto space, we're talking about this, because it means other assets will have to be sold to cover positions that get liquidated in this very crazy Japan market.
Yeah, the last time we saw the yen carry trade, we were at around like $70,000 Bitcoin, 65, and then we nuked down to 49K on Bitcoin very, very violently, but not just on crypto. There's trillions of dollars wiped out the last time like a true unwinding of that nature happened. In the background, I did also want to note they are doing a form of stimulus in the term of $118 billion of extra budget. On Tuesday, the Prime Minister, Sine, is that how you say her name, Sine? I want to say it's Sine.
I don't know.
Is that how you say it? Okay.
Sinai?
Sinai.
You have to
Okay.
say it
Yeah.
with a
I
more
always say
angry,
things slightly skewed.
AI, yeah, it's I. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Deliver it with an angry tone, though, and it sounds like Japanese.
Sinai. All right.
There it is.
The stimulus package, and basically they're including anti-inflation measures with this $118 billion and a boost to Japan's military. It's an 18.3 trillion yen budget passed by the upper house. This is an interesting time frame, and it's causing some major warnings coming from the likes of Warren Buffett. He's talking about the US dollar and the outlook of the US dollar looking worse than the Japanese yen right now. Berkshire Hathaway now deploying $348 billion into the Japanese yen. And this is highlighted. I mean, Warren Buffett, he's been sitting on a stack of cash, US dollars, for quite some time. And now he's starting to roll in to the yen, which is a little bit scary in terms of the dollar's power. Like, we've already lost, I think, like 10% over the last fiscal year in buying power for the US dollar. And the washout, we got news about the yen carry trade unwind a little bit of time ago. It was essentially right in this candle here, and we'd fallen by right around like 16%. So the yen carry trade situation resurfaced in the mainstream right here, and we vibe checked this center point. Now, this is an interesting question. I want to ask you this, Will, do you think that we've already priced in another yen carry trade situation with how this price action's gone so far? Or is there more pain to come? Because we've had some history of this, of dropping by 23% the last time we heard of fiscal tightening in Japan, 26% here in July of 24, 31% in January of 25. And now we're sitting at this great unknown moment. Do you think that we've already kind of priced in this situation already?
Yes and no. This has been the most telegraphed and talked about rate decision from the Bank of Japan in probably history. Like, more people know about it than ever. And so the market has largely priced in my personal opinion, the announcement. Whereas before it was announced and it was seen as like something that just kind of came out of left field, right? For the most part. But what is still going to impact the market is the actual impact on global liquidity that the constriction of access to the yen is going to cause, right? So I think the announcement comes out, and I think the market, for the most part, doesn't really react too much. Maybe the stock market does because it's near all-time highs, whereas Bitcoin and crypto have really already reacted. But then it's not just like there's an announcement and it's done. No, this announcement changes global liquidity levels to a very extreme degree. And if this is a ball of global liquidity, the announcement happens, rates get hiked, and then global liquidity starts to constrict within the financial banking sector. And this is entirely why the Fed started cutting rates again and has also already started to do quantitative easing here in the States, despite them not having the unemployment data that before they said, we're not going to do this. The Bank of Japan announced that stimulus package, which kicked dominoes down the road that said, hey, Japan is definitely hiking rates, which means the banking sector is not going to have any money, which means we, the US, need to start pumping the market. Otherwise, things are going to break. And so that constriction will probably be felt in asset prices in the stock market and probably in crypto too in the short term. But then this money printing from the US will increase that ball over the course of maybe 1 to 3 months or so, and then things will get better. That is what I'm personally
So on
thinking
that
this year.
note, that's the kind of interesting question is, on the one hand, we're having the tightening liquidity conditions because of the Japanese yen carry trade issue, the Fed rate cut, their rate hike in Japan. They already did a $135 billion stimulus. They're now talking about doing another 118. There's over $1 trillion stimulus going on in China, money printing going on in China, as I know it. And then, at the same time, we're also seeing that we're not doing QE here in the US. They're just rebranding it reserve management. So are some of these kind of positive things hypothetically for investment assets, risk on when you have, loosening liquidity conditions, but it's coming at the same time where we're getting this super constrictive measure happening in Japan. So is this kind of why we're seeing the risk on, risk off confusion? Okay, let's go into gold. Let's go into silver. Let's wait till we figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, well, it's two things. First of all, not all liquidity is the same. So if you look at M2 money supply is like, total money that's out there, particularly in savings accounts, money market funds, and things of that like. And then you have liquidity within the banking sector in financial systems. And those are two very different things. And what the rate hikes in Japan are going to affect is really the liquidity within the financial system, not necessarily the global liquidity that's out there in the world, right? The Japanese stimulus package will affect that. China printing will affect that. When the US really starts going full quantitative easing and printing, that will affect that, okay? So reductions in liquidity in either are bad for assets, and expansions are good for assets. And right now we're in an exact opportunity, as you just highlighted. We're seeing all this money printing for things that'll affect M2, but we're seeing these constrictions that are really starting to affect the financial sector. And also in the States, we've been fighting inflation for 3 years. We were doing rate hikes since 2021 or whatever it's been for a while now. And as a result, money in the banking sector in the US is at a point where banks would be breaking if the Fed didn't start doing repo on December 1st, which for those of you who don't know, they give a short-term loan to banks so that overnight they have enough liquidity to actually keep running and not fail. So the US banking sector is at such a dry liquidity level right now, since December 1st, that it would be breaking if the Fed did not step in and help. So that's how dry the field is, if you will, in the financial economic sector or the financial banking sector from liquidity. But the overall money supply is gigantic. So just as you said, these are two combating forces. And we're in a position right now that's confusing if you don't know this stuff. Because it says
absolutely, and it's a convoluted mess.
Risk on, but I'm supposed to be risk off, and as a result, people are buying gold.
Right. And I'm just really glad that we clarify these things. I see comments like, "Why are we always dogging on XRP?" I have my own reasons, but really, the main reason I titled it this way is because I know so many people out there hold XRP, which, don't get it mistaken, is an altcoin. And if we do lose important levels on Bitcoin and we do have to deal with a massive washout, XRP is probably going to have some trouble. So we're going to cover that later on. But there are some other things I want to talk about. Macroeconomic canaries in the coal mine that I'm seeing is this: an ounce of silver is now worth more than a barrel of oil, right? And this has only happened once before, for a very brief moment in the late 1970s. And a market that is beginning to seize up. And you mentioned some interesting things that kind of play into, you and Kelly have been talking about this, William and Kelly. It's the liquidity in the system, and especially within the banking infrastructure, is under extreme stress, right? Silver is a great describer of the loss of trust in banks, hard metals moving the way that they have, gold, silver. And I haven't had a chance to ask you this, William. It's kind of a doomer theory of mine that stagflation was going to hit the US. But now we're hearing ways that the next Federal Reserve governor is going to fix the situation and kick markets back into gear. It's a very convoluted thing to discuss. I wanted to just get your flat look, because you mentioned that liquidity would likely be able to expand into 2026, William, after a little bit of short-term pain. Do you consider the U.S. in a true stagflationary event right now? Is it still avoidable? What's your opinion on this comparison to the 1979 and 1980 movement? Because it looks very, very similar.
Sure. So for those of you who just don't know what stagflation is, it's when you're in a period where unemployment is going up and inflation is staying high or continues to go up, right? So it becomes very difficult for the Fed and the government to figure out what to do to help one without making the other worse. Stagflation is very, very rare. And it's also a horrible economic impact. So I don't know what the definition is for like how long you have to be in a period of stagflation, high unemployment, high inflation to officially be in stagflation. I'm not quite sure what the metrics are. What I can tell you though is that even though unemployment is getting worse and things have felt really bad, things can always get worse. The current unemployment rate is actually pretty good. It came in at 4.6% for the past 2 months. That's not that bad. It's really
the crazy part about that is the gig economy is exploding. Waged W-2 jobs are falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
And we have something like a hybrid setup where Mag 7 and automated jobs are taking the positions away. And people on the main line, like average people, are getting laid off. Companies are automating their processes. And this is a great oversight. Stagflation, where basically you have no or slow growth and high unemployment. They're not counting that as high unemployment. But William, I hate to be political, but ever since, actually, I don't hate to be political. Ever since Biden's regime and they faked 2 million jobs, the data means very, very little to me because they were
hold
lying.
on a second. I got to just interject something there as well, because I saw something today that blew my mind, because this is another one of those massive siphons on just the economy. When you look at what happened with Doge and all the things with the NGOs, do you guys realize this blew my mind? The Federal Reserve revealed that U.S. NGOs have $14 trillion in assets as of Q2 2025, exceeding the combined 2025 GDP of Japan, Germany, and India by about 5%. $14 trillion. And what we've noticed from those NGOs is really what they're supposed to be is non-governmental organizations. And we've really seen that they're actually just radical propaganda through unofficial channels. So they could basically push propaganda, shape populace, and launder money, helping about 6 people to get some moral cover. It's like they always say, this is to help, this is to do. And you realize this has been a massive siphon. I mean, think about what we could do in the US with $14 trillion allocated in ways that are actually tracked, manageable, transparent, and where you could actually affect things in a positive way versus just going into politicians and third-party pockets.
That would pay off a big chunk of our debt.
14 trillion.
I was going to say, if we had that money somewhere else, it'd just be siphoned to another country. So, it doesn't matter.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the jobs numbers though, because they came out this morning, and it's a very, very mixed bag in terms of jobs. First, I want to kind of go around the horn. Like Piano Matty B, let's go to you first. Piano Matty B, is there any way to actually trust the employment levels like that are coming out right now? Because on the surface, they sound like things are going pretty good. When I talk to my neighbor, I talk to all the people in the chat, things have really slid downhill. What does the job market in Canada look like right now for you?
Well, first off, you can't believe anything the government tells you, because they are rent-seeking, reptilian, parasitic, corrupt class of old boomers that are just looking out for their tiny little runway before they die, so they can make as much fiat cash as possible and then probably burn it before they die to not give it to their kids or grandkids, because we're talking about a deep corrupt class here. When it comes to jobs, I mean, you can feel it, right? One of the things that you see is despair. Like the feelings of despair when I go into the Gen Pop, which isn't often, but I do. It's a high level of despair going on with people having no hope. And I know that the younger generation, like men in their 20s, they just have zero hope. They're almost like the despair is unbelievable, right? But here is a little bit of a silver lining. If I can really reach deep down to that dark hole and pull out a silver lining. And this is from experience from back to the Japan carry trade for 1 second. In August of, was it 24 or 23? Whenever that happened, I was out at the lake. And when it went down from 70 to 49, I thought, oh my God, people are going to lose their minds, right? This is crazy. the stock market is going to go down to zero, right? And I walked out of the cabin, went to like get some coffee at the store, and there's not one single person in the whole area that knew anything was going on in life. And then, of course, a couple weeks later, everything goes back to normal. So, for instance, if you were to, and I do not suggest this, come to Canada for a vacation for your Christmas holidays, and let's say you got here December 18th, and when you were going through customs, they saw that you made a post that said, men can't get pregnant. Well, we got to put this guy in a holding tank for something like that. And so they stuck you in a holding tank for 2 weeks. Next day, December 19th, carry trade goes through, markets dump, right? We see Bitcoin go from 88 down to 50, right? But you're still in a holding tank for another 2 weeks for saying men can't get pregnant. And then you get out 2 weeks later, it's January 1st, the market's completely recovered. You'd have no idea. So sometimes you do need to separate yourself from all the mayhem that's going on in the world, in the jobs, in the CPI, in the Bitcoin market, the Bitcoin price. Divorce yourself from it, because in the end, it generally always goes up to the right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
This is, go ahead, Kelly. I was actually going to ask you next on your opinion about this chart, but go ahead.
No, I mean, I agree with everything that he says. And then going back to this idea of inflation and jobs numbers and the data, can we trust it? You have other sources out there. And I really want to encourage every single one of you to utilize multiple different sources. Don't fall into an algorithm, because when you look at something like Trueflation, for instance, you see this is what the numbers that they sent us from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, minus 26,000 revised down from minus 4,000, 100 plus 108,000, minus 105,000, right? Which they're not telling anybody because the government shutdown, but they have the data. And of course, plus 64,000. That's the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And then you look for Trueflation, which aggregates 15 different sources. And this one's close, but still different, minus 24,000, plus 16,000, not plus 108. Okay, and then plus 64 for October, different from minus 105, and minus 26 versus plus 64. Now, my point here is that this is right and this is wrong. My point here is even looking at different aggregated sources, you're getting a pretty large divergence of what the data is. So on the one hand, I do want to be a little bit more compassionate to the people that are calculating all the data on statistics and where they're getting them from. But what I'd really like to press any government agency out there that's shaping monetary policy and putting out reports that also therein help other people shape monetary policy, make sure that you're not having 2 million job revisions and you're not every month revising something up 100,000 people or down 70,000. It's like we need to get better data. And at this day and age, remember, all this data that the BLS gets, the large majority of it's from basically surveys of people and what they say. Mofo, we've got aggregators, we got AI, we got computers, we got ways to crunch this data in a much more meaningful way that can characterize it closer to truth than asking the people that you want that will help you shape the narrative you're trying to do, which I think that's what the US and everybody in the world is tired of. Everybody, even if you're far left or far right, even in those states, people are tired. They're fatigued, overwhelmingly fatigued of being shaped. We're tired of being shaped. Give us whatever the damn number is, good or bad, and make it be as close to realistic as possible so that we can move forward meaningfully.
Yeah. And well, I wanted to run this by you because, Kelly and me have been kind of thinking about this for a bit, like watching the S&P go to new all-time highs consistently over the past year. And the average person is hurting out there. The economy seems to be separating from humanity with the advent of AI. So give us your take on this. This is kind of a large question, but now that I got you on the show, I wanted to ask you this because the economy keeps making new highs. Revenue keeps increasing for the Mag 7, but people are becoming less and less involved in the economy at large. Is there a breaking point where the economy realizes that the average person's left behind and they're just going up into the right forever and completely leaving people behind? Like, is there ever a breaking point where the consumer is completely out of money and the economy has to make a massive correction to the downside? Or, what is your view of this? Because it's kind of confounding watching these two things happen at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll have a perfect answer for you, but first of all, it didn't start with AI. This started with COVID. COVID was the first example where you saw the entire global economy stop in its tracks, and after a pretty nasty correction, what did the stock market and also crypto do? Up and to the right, despite the economy literally not functioning. And that's where the breaking started. That is where the disconnect between how the stock market performed and how the economy on Main Street performed no longer were in line with one another. Because what broke it was the creation of more than 80% of all US dollars in basically one go. And all of a sudden, the stock market goes, oh, everything's valued in dollars. And so these assets are being compared against the dollar that's going to be weakened ridiculously and is immediately out the gate. We're going up and to the right no matter what the economy is doing. We pumped so much money into the economy so that the economy wouldn't entirely break even though it was frozen. So it all started there with COVID. And all of the problems we've had with inflation are stemming from that. Granted, inflation was always a thing. It wasn't Biden, it wasn't Trump. It is the massive amount of money we had to put into keeping things running and keeping the lights on from COVID. That is the economic big bang point of what we're still dealing with today. Okay. And now you throw AI on top of that and the automation of jobs, and things feel like they're going to get worse and worse for Main Street. And then on top of that, you have like culturally, internet culture is preys very much so on your emotions. And so that feels weird. There's a lot of things that feel bad for Main Street. Meanwhile, stocks up and to the right, a lot of uncertainty, gold up and to the right, Bitcoin for a while up and to the right, up until about October. So do I think there's a breaking point at some point? I mean, at some point, things will have to change because people just like won't have jobs. So like what happens when people don't have jobs? You have like anarchy in the streets, and people don't want that, obviously. So is it universal basic income of some type? Is it higher safety nets, more public? Like, I don't know what the answer is, right? All we know is that there's going to be more automation. We know that there's more debasement of our currency, and something's going to have to change, because otherwise the economy and Main Street are going to be left so far behind everyone who's investing and the stock market that you are honestly walking a really dangerous path of like French Revolution type shit. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants that. So something has to be done. I don't have the answer. I don't know what it is. People smarter than me are going to have to figure that out. But I do think that we are getting close to some type of a breaking point. I just don't know what that is or when.
Well,
You've been exposed.
I have to say, somebody in here referenced you as Tom Selleck, so I have to do the honorary mustache meme for the young Tom Selleck we got here.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Love that. Appreciate it. Thank you, sirs or madams.
So basically, it feels like we got some headwinds. We got some turbulence in our future, and the options for Fed chairs, one of the options, honestly, both of the options for Fed chair sound decently bullish on Bitcoin's place in this chaotic soup that we just talked about here pretty concisely as well. I loved having this panel on. But if things do continue to slide downhill, and if we do vibe check previous all-time highs for Bitcoin, I think there's some problems coming for one of the top altcoins, and that top altcoin being XRP. And it's going to be very, very confusing if it does happen, because XRP's consistently got these very bullish conversations going out. This is from Times Tabloid. And this actually is Brad Garlickhouse talking about a waiting period that crypto holders are going to have to go through to get that market structure bill voted on. It sounds like we're not going to have any regulatory clarity going into next year. And actually, Kelly, you had mentioned some key points about that. Is there any specific time where they're expected to get back to the table and try to vote on that crypto market regulatory?
I believe it's in January. Yeah, I believe
January.
Well, I mean, here's the deal: that they've kicked the can down the road 2 or 3 times already. So as of now, it's sometime in January. But remember, what's also coming up in January is they got to come up with some sort of budget and appropriations bill, whatever continuing resolution or in the there's so much going on politically that's hamstringing what people's expectations are going to be about what's happening, beyond 1 or 2 months, which is also as bullish as we want to be right now today in the market. To William's point, 1, we're looking at what's going on in Japan. 2, we're looking at not having any clarity beyond the end of this year. We need something like for the next budget appropriations for a year, which we're not getting until January. And if that's going to be something that's really monopolizing the time of senators and in Congress and representatives and such, then that begs a question: will the market structure bill be something that takes precedence over a budget and appropriations? It feels like that's going to need to happen first, and then likely the market structure bill.
Yeah.
Are you guys aware of the Morgan Stanley vote as well on January 15th? Have you guys
the
been talking about that on
MSCI
the channel? Oh, say that again.
The MSCI with MicroStrategy.
Yeah. Okay, because that's the thing that I'm looking at as like the bigger FUD story that causes more selling potentially. That, or it happens and it marks the absolute bottom, right? Oftentimes you see like headlines or things happen and that's actually the bottom and the market turns around. But so for those of you who don't know, MSCI, this is Morgan Stanley's index, and they are voting on the 15th to kick out every single company that has more than 50% of its balance sheet being held in Bitcoin.
So hold on, William, how many companies have more than 50% on their balance sheet?
I actually don't know. I don't know. I know MicroStrategy is obviously that, and there's about 200 companies that have tried to copy them, but I don't know how many of those are at 50%.
I would guess that MicroStrategy is probably sitting on the top of that hill by itself.
Yeah, they certainly are. And that's the biggest problem, because if strategy, also bad branding, just keep MicroStrategy, it was better. If they get kicked out by Morgan Stanley's index, that triggers immediately $3 billion to $8 billion, depending on what happens between now and then in terms of people selling MicroStrategy stock, of strategy stock immediately as it gets kicked out of Morgan Stanley's index, if this vote passes on the 15th. And then you're going to see everybody screaming, MicroStrategy is going to have to sell their Bitcoin. I've done the math on Strategy's balance sheet. Depending on how much they burn through their cash, they have about 12 to 20 months of runway before they'd have to sell Bitcoin. But the thing is, sentiment matters more. And you're going to see all these stories percolate about Strategy having to sell your Bitcoin. It's going to go to like $15,000, yada, 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 yada. But that's on January 15th. Something to have on your radar screens.
Yeah, this is, for whatever reason, they have this projected out through March 31st, which I'm not sure why. I mean, even still, it's kind of marinating here around this 65% zone, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. I do remember that Michael Saylor also was meeting with the JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley representatives to talk about this. Because guys, remember, JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, Morgan, in both names, they're very tied in with each other, subsidiaries of each other. So
yeah.
I feel like it could be Michael Saylor just walking up to him, opening his company, like, y'all want some Bitcoin?
Dude, I know. I mean, he's been the kind of the pillar and also the focal point of attack for this Bitcoin treasury move. Piano Matty B, you've been talking about strategy for a very, very long time. If you do see a massive washout on strategy, in the future, over the next few months, let's say that vote goes through and they do see that massive washout, is it a buying opportunity, or like how would you deal with an event like that?
I think it is a good buying opportunity, but my hesitation, it's not really hesitation, because I'm a Michael Saylor fan, right? But at the end of the day, he's not in that club, right? He's not a bona fide member of that tiny little club that kind of runs that massive Wall Street industry. If anything, he's an enemy of that club because he has more ammo now, ammo being Bitcoin, than they could ever imagine. I mean, it's a weird catch-22, because if they wanted to catch up with him, they'd have to somehow manage to buy all this Bitcoin and have the price not go up on them, right? And we all know they love to buy OTC, but not that it would change the price if they bought all that Bitcoin. But he's not in the club, so I worry about that, and he becomes like a target, right? Unless he joins the club. But I don't think he's going to join the club. I think he's indicative of the early ethos of Bitcoin, right? Before we had involvement with the big money, I think he's on the orange pill trajectory. Meanwhile, everyone else, we've somehow, with the FUD of Wall Street and with the FUD of the institutions, we've almost become economic cucks, where it's like, well, what's going to happen if what's going to happen? What's he going to say? What's this guy going to do? What's going to happen if this happens, right? We're all dependent on these economic factors now, where I don't remember that being the biggest issue in the past cycles. You know, Bitcoin did its thing. It did its 4-year cycle, and it was kind of independent of this Wall Street cuckoldry, right? But now that's where we're at. So
Well, you know, on that note, it's also this sort of liquidity tool because of the 24/7 market, and that feels like it's about to shift. Hey, am I boring you? That feels like it's about to shift pretty dramatically because they have 23-hour trading coming to NASDAQ here very shortly as well. So it feels like there's a lot of conditions that Bitcoin is subject to right now. One is it's changing every 3 months. It feels like the circumstances it's living in, but the fact that we have the government shutdown looming into January, the MSCI issue that needs to be voted on, the Japanese yen carry trade, and then also potential other 24-hour market that's going to be out. It feels like in 6 months' time, everything that we're frustrated with now, we're going to be laughing at because we very well could be looking at $170,000 Bitcoin. The alternative to that is maybe we're looking at a, $64,000 Bitcoin. And I think that's what's ultimately super frustrating for people.
Well, and it's confusing because, when we see these new releases of these altcoin treasuries, and you mentioned it as well, Piano Meta B, these organizations doing OTC buys, they don't help the price go up, right? So Brad Garlic House out here bragging about 30 days of straight inflows for XRP spot ETFs, and yet the price not looking great, right? Not such a great price. We've had just a nasty movement to the downside. It's got the likes of Dave Portnoy out here rubbing his head, wondering if he's ready to get out. If I sell crypto, everything's going to rip. He's feeling pretty nervous about the gigantic XRP buys that he's done.
Well, to be fair, he also said that XRP could be the next Bitcoin. So,
well, yeah, and no wonder why he's scratching his head. But one of the, this guy, I keep seeing.
Dude, I keep seeing his face all over Twitter.
I keep seeing this guy. First of all, let's talk about this guy. Do you actually think he is the highest IQ holder? Or is this some self-proclaimed psyop? Because anyone that says this consistently sounds like a douchebag liar to me. What do you guys think?
I have no idea, and I don't care. Whenever I see this type of stuff on Twitter, I just scroll right past it because I've just seen his face attached to I think 7 different types of cryptos, being like, and now XR, and now Bitcoin, and now Shiba Inu Obama Sonic coin, and I'm just like, oh my God, I can't fucking.
No, he took a test in the back of Maxim magazine or on Facebook or some nonsense, and probably took it 42 times and got some sort of score that makes him feel good. He's engagement farming, and he's doing it very well. And those that fall for it are silly.
Well, he's calling for $100 XRP in 5 years. Just to be clear, a $10 XRP is $1 trillion market cap, right? So if we're talking $100 XRP, it's a $10 trillion market cap. That's half the market cap of gold. In my opinion, it's probably not going to happen. And really the main reason why I've been so bearish on XRP for a while now is because the monthly escrow releases. It's, basically Ripple has released, aka sold 11.4 billion XRP tokens into circulation over the past 2 years, from December 16th to 23 to now, December 16th to 2025. Now, when they do this, they've made over $24 billion, and the funding of it goes into new ventures, but they don't foster their DeFi ecosystem. They don't foster, internal growth. And now I'm seeing things like this, where Ripple's piloting their stable coin on Ethereum layer 2s in a multi-chain push. So I see a spreading of focus. I see a lack of focus here, and I see a lack of development with their own DeFi ecosystem. So then I can go back to this chart. If things do unwind in a nasty way, in my opinion, I think that XRP is represented at its true value at about $1.25 right now. This might be hyper bearish. This might be absolutely awful, but I think it's worth considering and talking about because I know that a lot of people in the chat and a lot of people in crypto hold this token. So I kind of want to go around the horn here. I'll start with Kelly. I'll start with you, Kelly, and then I want Maddie, if you can pull your fibs on this bad boy, But I really want your guys' opinion on this. Kelly, what do you think the XRP level that can be held would be if we do see a market continue to cascade to the downside?
If the market melts down, that $1.20 that you mentioned would be, represented, $1.20 would be basically coming back to these levels look, these rejection levels. So there is a reason for that on a technical basis. The wick has gone down to about, what's the low there? And just a reminder, if you put your cursor over a particular candle, these are not random numbers, OHLC, that's open, high, low, close of each candle. So just put your mouse over that. The low is $1.25 on the wick basis. I feel like if that's happening, if XRP is going down to this level and below, Ethereum's probably back in the $1,800, $2,200 range. Bitcoin's probably quite low as well. I think as much as it's not something in my portfolio, I think XRP is still going to kind of perform in concert with the rest of the crypto market. If we just get a washout and we get that double, that sort of next barely lower low on Bitcoin, then I could see this still coming down to about $1.65 to $1.75 region before it continues to the upside.
Gotcha. Okay. Piano Matty B, do you got an opinion of this? I don't think I've ever asked you to chart out XRP before, but we're just at that time frame.
Well, the reason why I don't chart out most altcoins is that outside of parabolic insider pumps, they just follow. They're just a vector of Bitcoin, right? So Kelly was right. If Bitcoin goes down, XRP goes down. There's no calculus where Bitcoin goes down and XRP goes to the moon, right? And that goes for all the altcoins. Everything, the grand poobah here is Bitcoin. And if it goes up, then we'll see an explosion in XRP. We haven't had an alt season this year, and it's the humble opinion of this piano that we're probably not going to get it. So whether it's XRP, Solana, any of the altcoins, if Bitcoin continues to go down, we're not going to see anything pump. But this is why, to me, the crypto sphere represents the last bastion of free market capitalism. So we're under this illusion that the States is free market capitalism. But when we have the Fed at levers, being able to pull levers to change the direction of the economy, we're in more of a planned economy, kind of like Canada, right? There's no free market. So until we see companies wash out, now whether it's XRP, Solana, or MicroStrategy, these things need to happen to heal a wounded economy. And that's what we're in. We're basically in the death throes of a fiat experiment economy that's basically circling the drain. And the only way out of it is to kind of let certain aspects of it die. But if the Fed's sitting here with levers to make sure that this doesn't die and this can die, but this can't, then this is kind of going to go on forever as we circle the drain.
Very crazy stuff to think about. And while this is all going down, we are seeing some DDoS attacks on a couple projects that have, really captured mind share. Even in the midst of all the pain, SWE up to recently was doing very, very well. It's been targeted by a DDoS attack for the last week, it looks like, alongside Solana. SWE makes me wonder, but for this, I'm not a huge buyer of SWE in this pullback. Solana, I'm down to grab under $80. And I want to ask you guys, let's say XRP washes down to 50 cents. William, are you buying XRP? You're on TikTok a lot. You see a lot of those XRP TikTokers.
Funny enough, actually, my TikTok algorithm is scrubbed free of crypto. It I talk about crypto enough for myself.
Okay.
My TikTok algorithm are German Shepherd puppies and funny skits, and that's about it. It's a pretty happy place, my algorithm. It's pretty nice. Train your algorithm to be happy, everyone. That's my tip. But I mean, I am a well-known critic of XRP, have been for years. Okay, I try my best to dispel all the conspiracy theories around it, but I always say XRP is a phenomenal coin to make money off of. I'll do trades on XRP happily. There's a lot of liquidity. Whenever it does well, it does really well, and it can range really nicely for longs and shorts. So if you're looking to practice trading, there's almost nothing better than XRP to do that on. I am not a holder of XRP in any way, shape, or form. I like things that have adoption amongst their targeted audience. I like things that have revenue. And I like things that to me actually have a chance of achieving their end goal. With that, I don't necessarily mean that to be particular shade to the XRP community. I think XRP has more going for it than the overwhelming majority of this space. Just that the overwhelming majority of this space are scams, Ponzi schemes, and failed businesses.
Yep.
So yeah,
I wanted to interject there too, because we have a very vocal Chad here in chat who says we're all wrong and we're stupid and blah blah blah. And it's basically because Caspa is what we should be looking at. This is from Bartizan. Let's go ahead and highlight. It's front running the market. This is the one that's going to do it. It's been okay. Well, let's take a look at your lovely coin there. Since summer last year, let's look at that. Oh my God, it's down 78, dropped as low. Oh my God, look at that, 94%. Currently about 80% to the downside. Shut your ass up. Get off your coin because you hold it. So it's the best bullshit. I am fucking tired of it in this market.
I got an interesting background in Caspa because like in the basement, we were about it and we were mining it before it even had that run up, and then sold it on the run up. And I haven't seen a lot. Like there's an energy deal that someone had mentioned. I think it was actually him. An energy deal they're trying to do, but with the potential of the market at large rolling over right now, Caspa is way too low on the market cap list for me personally to feel like getting into right now. I like capital preservation. What is this chart you got up on your screen here, Patty Manabe? Is that XRP?
It's XRP, yeah, but it's a quick correlation. I just threw a fib here. I'm going on ad nauseum about the bull market rejection level of 38.2% fib, which is 98.3 on the Bitcoin chart. So for all the XRP simps out there that is hoping for price to go up, I would expect it if Bitcoin can get up to 98.3, because XRP is not going to move unless Bitcoin moves. We could see it maybe get back up here to $2.40 at that point. That's probably your last beacon of hope for until 2029, if it's still around, maybe. I don't know.
So an escape pump level there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wanted to follow it up because Bartizan's upset with me. He said it's the only thing, Caspa's the only thing that's moving. Well, let's go ahead. Let's go back, guys. Let's look at Caspa against Bitcoin. Man, it's doing really well against Bitcoin, guys. It's killing it. It's doing better. It's the best thing in the market because it's in your bag, Bartizan. You guys don't have this mindset. Realize assets are going to do what they're going to do. It's in a global financial landscape now, even crypto, even altcoins. And I'm not saying Caspa can't do well, but the claim because you hold it, it's better than everything else and it's performing better. Here's Caspa to Bitcoin. It's only been down.
Well, at inception, it ran for a minute and then, it hits the peak. And that was around 2024. I was selling tons of altcoins in 2024. I felt like I was screwing up. But I saw that I was performing up and to the right against Bitcoin, and winning against Bitcoin in an altcoin is very difficult to do. So I sell, feel like I'm crazy, and now the market's completely reset back down to those levels. So it is something to keep in mind. And we are going to be watching this. This comes out tomorrow at 5 p.m. Coinbase has some announcements about some new products, what they're calling the new era of Coinbase. It's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be traveling, unfortunately, when this goes down. William, have you been following the Base ecosystem at all and anything being built within it?
I've been following Base since 2023 when people made fun of me for saying that Base was going to be big, and then we bought Aerodrome at 5 cents. So
yeah, okay.
I remember those comments very clearly in my head. And I go to sleep with a smile on my face every night thinking of them. I'm not petty. But yeah, I've been paying attention to Base. I have a couple friends who are developers at Base as well. And we're especially close with the folks who, they've rebranded. They were Farcaster, but whatever. Anyway. So I'm not quite sure what they're going to release. I don't know what it is. I will say that I am genuinely upset with Base's decision to release a token. And since then, I've kind of been unintentionally kind of like stepping away from the Base ecosystem and falling more into like the loving embrace of Solana a bit more myself. Because I just don't like it. Like philosophically, I disagree with it. To me, it's just a money grab. and you're ultimately going to get a bunch of people to buy a top and then get burned or get liquidated and stuff. Like, you're already making money. You don't need a token. You're doing great stuff. You're pushing Ethereum forward. You're pushing the space forward. Why create something that's going to be an on-ramp for some people that's going to create pain? And for people who've been using Base, like, I don't know what, we're all going to get $5. Whoopee, great. From an airdrop standpoint, who cares? So I don't know what Base is building next. I do know that a lot of their focus and attention with developers has been around creating like social media, social experiences, but they're still pumping a ton of money into gaming. And the people that I know in Wolves DAO, for those of you who don't know, just it's like the gaming DAO, the Web3 developer space, they're all saying from a gaming standpoint, like, keep your eyes on Base over the next few years for gaming launches and gaming releases. But I can't say I have any insight as to what they're going to release tomorrow.
I'll tell you what they're building, William. And this is the long-term play. They're trying to build an everything app. We have
good luck.
multiple technological elite factions that are trying to race to the top of the hill of building an everything app for the North American continent right now. This is Elon Musk. This is Brian Armstrong. The Base DeFi play and turning itself into an internal yield creating mechanism is just part of a grander scheme of things. Zora, kind of like the Instagram, Pinterest version of what's being done on Base. It's going to be a long time to get to that level, but it's something that, like, I'm going to bet on Elon Musk actually winning that. More so, I feel like institutional flows into Coinbase are going to be stronger because of how much Bitcoin through those ETFs they custody. And they also custody crypto for the Department of Justice. Like, they're kind of the chosen one here in the United States. There's not much we can do about it. And I almost look at it like Coinbase captured Ethereum in an essence. It's an interesting concept. What do you think about that?
This is what I'd say, and it all kind of stems from how I view Coinbase, which is I don't think Coinbase makes great products. I think they make great deals. And that's very different. Like, their deal and relationship with Larry Fink and BlackRock is phenomenal. Them being the OTC desk is phenomenal. They've built a good exchange, in my opinion, not even the best exchange in the US. The best exchange is Kraken. I'm not paid by them in any way, shape, or form. That's what I genuinely believe. I think Base is a really, really, really good layer 2 and a phenomenal on-ramp. And they are definitely kind of taking over Ethereum a little bit. But that's just because they have a much better and much louder marketing platform. You still have Polygon dominates microtransactions. They, with Poly Market, phenomenal consumer adoption. Courtyard, with like Pokemon ripping digitally online, largest buyer of Pokemon cards in the world, phenomenal consumer adoption. You have Pudgy Penguins trying to get in there with Abstract as well with consumer adoption. Linnea was chosen to be the platform for Swift to build on Ethereum. So it's like, you have these really good things happening still on layer 2s. It's still a very competitive race. It's just that Base has a centralized marketing team that's really good. Yeah. And, that message is getting out loud and clear.
That's sometimes even more of the battle is making sure that you're heard and you're in front of the populace when things actually do kick over. I think this is a very, very pointed conversation, and really where I'm at right now. I know that there's a lot of uncertainty out in the markets. I really want you guys to stay plugged in. The people that are not sidelined right now and that are paying attention and prepared to buy a nasty, nasty washout are going to be the ones bragging about their incredible entry points and their incredible profits a year or two from now because they were savage enough to buy the dips. And I want to kind of go around the horn. Kelly Kellum, you are running some awesome spaces on Twitter as well. When is the next Twitter space for Discover Crypto coming up, man?
Thursday. Yeah, Thursday will be the next one through the Discover Crypto account and also my account. And again, I just want to make something clear. And I mean this. I am in no way hating on XRP. I'm not hating on Caspa. What I'm hating on is a characterization people have and the marriage they feel because they hold it. People argue because they hold something, it must be the best coin. Caspa is going to make people a lot of money. XRP is probably going to make people a lot of money. Cardano is going to make people a lot of money. Ethereum is going to make like a lot of these coins. Once the risk comes back into markets, once we get some clarity around the fallout or just pass over, like the getting through what's going on with Japan liquidity crisis and the Fed hikes there. Going into Q1, I think we have some cobwebs to shake off of this market, and that's when we can start to see bullishness in these various assets. So right now things are hurting, and it's hurting if you're expecting, but if you realize that there's a reason for this pain in the market, you can take advantage of this pain and not fall victim to it.
Very wise words. William, where can people keep up with you? I know you're out there creating content, and I love your market updates. So where's the best place to keep up with all your content at, brother?
Yeah, sure. So if you're on TikTok, you can find me at coin_guide. There are a million impersonators, but you can also find me over on Twitter as well, which is CoinGuideWW. If you're on Instagram, you can also follow our company page at The Rise Up Morning Show. And
Nice.
stay up to date.
Absolutely. And Piano Matty B, are we still on for our Friday? I know we get a little bit unhinged on your YouTube show on Fridays. Are we still on, brother?
Of course, yeah. 8 a.m. I guess it'd be 9 a.m. for you, and 6 a.m. over on the West Coast.
Make sure to go follow Piano Matty B while we're still allowed to air out of Canadistan. Me and him talk about some of the spiciest subject matter on the
Any
internet.
day now, I could have to get a digital ID, and I'm gone. You'll never see me again.
Shit. Well, it was an incredible time, incredible show, and really, you must remember how far you've come in this life. If you are sitting here looking at the most disruptive asset class on the planet in a time of the highest uncertainty we've experienced in arguably the history of the United States, but for sure within the last 50 years, you are an absolute savage. Whatever coin it is that you're looking at, whatever research it is that you're enveloped in, I respect you for trying to better your life and noticing the writing on the wall, the demise of the US dollar. We have to act aggressively. And if you're not in crypto, I got to say, I'm sorry to say,
You are banned!